You're listening to Co-Parenting with Grace, the podcast for families raising kids across two homes. I'm your host, Jody Grace, wife, bonus mom, professional peacekeeper, and your teammate in this beautiful work of co-parenting. So put that red lipstick on, Grace family, and let's get into it. Welcome back to Co-Parenting with Grace. I'm so glad you're here with me today. We are diving into one of the hardest and most misunderstood parts of blended family life, the step-parent struggle. Now stay with me, bio moms. This isn't about who's right and who's wrong. This is an opportunity to look across the fence and try to see what your co-parent may be experiencing so that you can better understand each other. And don't worry, we have a couple of biological moms on this season to speak from their perspective as well. We are teammates on this journey, and if we don't learn to see things from the other's perspective, how can we ever win as a team? For the stepmoms that have ever felt invisible in your own home, powerless in decisions, or like you're constantly loving without recognition, you are in the right place. This episode is about truth-telling, encouragement, and reminding you that your role matters more than you may realize. When I first stepped into this role, I thought the hardest part would be figuring out the schedule or learning what they like to eat or making sure I never missed an event. What I didn't expect was the weight of invisibility, the way step-parents can show up every day and still feel like a ghost in their own home. I'll never forget I was coming out of a workout class and I was approached by this woman. She only knew me because she had seen me on social media or looked me up, but she went out of her way to say, "Is your name Jody?" I said, "Yes, it is." I didn't know her, but I'd recognized her as an acquaintance of the boy's mom, Kelly. And if I haven't said that yet, that's her name. And you are going to know even more about her because we have a 2-part episode coming up in a few weeks. You will not want to miss it, but back to the story. So she asks if I'm Jody, and instead of simply saying, "Oh, you're Kelly's boy's stepmom," or even, "I think I know you, I'm Kelly's friend," she says, "So you're Kelly's baby daddy's," and I just cut her off right there. And I said, "Fiance. I'm Jody, the boy's dad's fiance." She chose words that instantly made me feel smaller, like I was less than. And I felt it was disrespectful to my husband to refer to him as so-and-so's baby daddy. I think those terms are juvenile and honestly disgusting. I would never say them to another grown woman, especially one I didn't know. But here's the truth I have learned since. Her words were not about me at all. They came from her own experience, her wounds, her own lens. And once I realized that, I stopped letting someone else's language determine my worth. Because my worth as a stepmom or a bonus mom doesn't come from titles or opinions. It comes from the love I pour into my family, the consistency I show up with, and the grace that I extend in the hard moments. Today's episode is not about venting. It is not about blaming. It is about telling truths. And if you are a step-parent listening right now, I want you to hear this from me. You are not alone. There is a community of people like us that can relate to most things you're going through. This episode is for the ones showing up in the shadows, the ones packing lunches and wiping tears even when no one says thank you. It's for the ones who've been told, "You're not my real mom," or "I wish my mom were here." Or how about, "You don't get a say, butt out. This conversation is between me and my kid's dad or me and my kid's mom." And you kept loving anyway. Because here's the thing. This role might not come with a specific title or a manual, but it comes with a calling. And if you are walking it with grace and grit, even when it's messy, you are doing the holy work. One of the hardest parts of being a stepmom isn't the logistics. It's not the schedules or the carpools or the dinner plans. It's the way you can show up every single day, loving, serving, building, and still feel invisible. As I said, I have had seasons where I poured myself into the smallest details, packing lunches, washing uniforms, helping with homework, drying tears. And yet at the end of the day, there was no acknowledgement from my children. In fact, I've been met in those moments with, "That's not how my mom does it," or just silence. And then there are sharper moments, the ones where you're told directly, "You're not my real mom," or "I don't need two moms." Words that cut deep, even when you know they come from a place of confusion or hurt or loyalty binds. That kind of invisibility doesn't just sting, it weighs on you. And it makes you question, does my presence here matter? And I'm speaking to you right now from a really vulnerable spot. I have had a moment here in the last week where I have experienced these loyalty binds with one of mine. I'm going to hit you with a few reflection questions today. Some things to consider when evaluating where you're at in your step-parent role. My first one is this. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? And what moments stand out the most to you? Write them down. I want you to sit with that question for a moment because those feelings are real and they're heavy. But invisibility does not equal irrelevance. Just because your work isn't always seen doesn't mean it isn't sacred. Just because your voice isn't always heard doesn't mean it isn't valuable. Now a word from our sponsor. Big Stone Soap Company makes small batch, handcrafted soap with a whole lot of soul. These all-natural scents tell a story and feel like a return to roots. My personal favorite? Shake it, sugary. Deadhead, of course. Use promo code GRACE at bigstonesoapco.com. That's BIGSTONESOAPCO.com for a special discount just for our Co-Parenting with Grace listeners. There are a few themes that come up again and again in the stepmom journey. They may look a little different in each family, or may look a lot different, but I would guarantee the weight of them feels the same. I'm going to go over some key struggles that seem to top the list for a lot of step-parents. The first one being imposter syndrome. There are days you wonder, do I really even belong here? You can be present for birthdays, holidays, family dinners, and still feel like an outsider looking in. I've mentioned before that sometimes I feel like I stepped in the side door after the story had already begun in my family. Sometimes it's like no matter what you do, you'll never measure up to the real parent. Let's reflect. When have you questioned your role or wondered if you belong in your own family story? Now let's talk about feeling powerless. All the decisions, big ones like schools or medical care, small ones like discipline or routines, and so often you're on the outside of those conversations. You live the reality every day, but the choices are made without you. That powerlessness can leave you frustrated and silenced. Have you ever felt powerless in decision-making as a step-parent? And how do you cope with that? Now, how about outsider feelings? Sometimes the ache is simply being the third wheel, sitting at the table while your spouse and kids share memories that don't include you. Being at the game or the recital, but not knowing where to stand. It can feel like there's really no place at all that fully belongs to you. Emotional labor. There's the invisible work, the glue work, the scheduling, the reminders, the text messages, the emotional tone setting. You become the one holding the pieces together, even if no one notices. And it's exhausting and real. How much invisible work do you carry in your step-parent role? Does it feel recognized? And what would it feel like if it was? There's also a grief that comes with being a stepmom, a grief people rarely name. It's the grief of firsts, the first steps, the first words, the first birthday parties. Those firsts already happened before you arrived. And even though you're here now, making new memories, there's a quiet ache of knowing you missed the beginning. Grief isn't shameful or something you should carry guilt over feeling. It just means you carry a kind of invisible grief alongside the joy, and that's okay. What firsts have you grieved in your step-parenting role? And have you made peace with building new memories? This missing firsts can be especially heavy for step-parents who are experiencing that quiet longing, the desire for a child of your own. It's not always front and center, but it adds another layer of grief and complexity to the journey. If you've ever longed for children of your own, how has that shaped your step-parent role? What might you need to help manage the grief that comes with this loss of what you thought you would experience? And I don't want to forget the families where step-parents have biological children of their own. That balance can be incredibly tough. It's one thing to love and show up for your stepkids, but what happens when you have your own kids in the mix? Suddenly, you're navigating loyalty binds from both directions. Or maybe you and your partner each have children from your previous relationships, but none together. Or you have his, hers, and ours situation. That can create a different kind of ache. When you feel like your partner favors their biological children over your stepchildren, or when the bonds never feel quite equal. These are quiet struggles that don't get talked about enough, but they are very real in blended families. So let's reflect on this. Have you ever wrestled with balancing love between your own biological children and your stepchildren? Or have you noticed tension when your partner's bond with their biological child feels stronger than with yours? What would working on that better balance look like or mean for you? When the weight of step-parenting feels unbearable, we all search for ways to cope. And I'm not just talking about a stiff drink on the back porch after a long day. Some strategies get talked about a lot in stepmom spaces, and while they may work for some, they don't always work for everyone. I'm sure you have heard the term Nacho method. The idea is Nacho kids, Nacho problem. Basically, it just means disengaging from the parenting responsibilities and letting your partner handle their own children. For some, this is an absolute survival tool, especially when you have a high conflict parent involved that refuses to have any kind of relationship or a relationship at all with the step parent. Or this could work vice versa. Maybe you're a step parent and you are refusing to have a relationship with the biological parent. If boundaries are being trampled or if conflict with the biological parent is constant, stepping back can provide relief. But for others, it feels impossible or even heartbreaking. Because when you love these kids, it doesn't feel natural to stand back with your hands off for some. The key here is balance. You get to decide what parts of parenting you can step into and what parts are better left for your partner. And that decision may change over time. Another coping method, and this doesn't just apply to co-parenting, is fight, flight, or freeze. Another thing I want to name and how easy it is to get triggered in this role. When conflict arises or when your voice feels dismissed, your nervous system kicks into survival mode. This is when your prefrontal cortex goes completely offline. Maybe you have felt that urge to defend yourself instantly. That's fight. Or maybe you shut down in silence. Freeze. Or maybe you've wanted to run away from it all. Flight. There's no shame in any of those responses. They are hardwired into our brains. The important part is learning to recognize them in real time so that they do not control your next step. At the heart of most coping strategies is this one word: boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're doors that protect your peace. It might sound like, I'll handle school drop-off, but I need you to text the boy's mom or dad about the custody schedule. Or, I'll be glad to help with homework, but I need you to be the one to handle the situation when the kids start fighting. Boundaries, while kind, make it clear what is yours to carry and what is not. And for step-parents, that clarity is life-saving. This is not a disrespect to your partner, to your kids, or to your co-parent. This is necessary for you and your own mental health. Boundaries need to be set in all relationships, even outside of your co-parenting roles. So I ask you this: where do you need clearer boundaries in your step-parent role? And what would it look like to release what isn't yours to carry? Up to this point, we've been talking about the weight, the struggles that can leave you feeling powerless, invisible, or like you're constantly holding everything together. But here's the truth I've learned. Struggle is not the end of the story. Let's talk about reframing some things and how we can cope better when we teach ourselves to process things through a less hurt or defensive lens. One of the first reframes for me was language. Being belittled or made to feel less than at the workout class really stung in that moment. But I realized later, her words are not about me. They were about her and her story, how she sees her own relationships, and I do not have to carry the weight of someone else's labels. When it comes to language for step-parenting, we need a refresh, a clean slate. Let's lean into words like partners, teammates, counterparts. Language that reflects what we actually are instead of what we're not. Another reframe is about where we place our worth. My worth does not come from whether the kids call me mom, or whether the teacher sends me the emails, or whether anyone notices the lunches I pack. My worth comes from how I show up, consistently, lovingly, and with grace. I recognize that in myself, and when I do, I don't need that as much from anyone else. Is it good to hear? Yes. And I am thankful that that is something my husband is sure to do, is make me feel appreciated. Now the kids, they'll get there. They're young. And as long as I teach them to be respectful and appreciative, they will one day see the ways that I showed up when I didn't have to. One thing that doesn't get said enough is how much pressure marriage carries in a blended family. For stepmoms, it often feels like if my marriage works, the family works. If my marriage fails, then the family falls apart. I know for a lot of us, our biggest fear is, what if my spouse leaves? Then does that mean I lose my kids too? Because as a bonus parent, without your spouse, you have no right to the children you've helped raise and love, but did not birth. That's a lot of weight to put on one relationship. And here's the truth. Your marriage is important, but it doesn't rest on your shoulders alone. Prioritizing your own mental health, your own healing, is what actually strengthens the relationship. Because when you're healthy, your marriage is healthier too. Therefore, the kids benefit as well. Reflection question. How might focusing on your mental health first actually help strengthen your marriage and your family? For me, I know that titles and opinions will come and go, but the love I choose to give, that's mine. Even the hardest parts have been teaching moments. Feeling invisible taught me to anchor myself in presence. Feeling like an outsider has taught me resilience. And carrying emotional labor has taught me the power of boundaries. It doesn't mean those things stop hurting, but they stop defining you and you can let go of feeling like a victim of your circumstances. And part of that reframe for me has been realizing I don't have to compete to be mom or to be dad. Mom is mom, dad is dad, and I am Jode. I get to be my own thing in this family. I use the term bonus parent intentionally because that's exactly what it is. You're not replacing anyone. You are in addition to. It means showing up in a way that only you can. Your role is not smaller, it's different. And different can be powerful. Now that was a lot, so let's reflect here. What would it look like for you to step fully into your role as a bonus parent without comparison to mom or dad? Now let's talk for a minute about how stepmoms were portrayed when we were growing up. Movies and television weren't the best models of stepmoms. Think about the movies we watched as kids: Cinderella, Snow White, Evil Stepmoms, The Parent Trap, the stepmom-to-be is manipulative and fake, Enchanted, again, an evil stepmother. Even Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade gave us a wicked stepmother figure, and it doesn't stop there. Even in more recent years, movies that came out after I was an adult, still portraying bonus mother figures in a villainous light. Entangled, Mother Gothel isn't technically a stepmom, but she's the bonus mother, kidnapping Rapunzel and raising her with control and manipulation. And in Coraline, the character called the other mother literally becomes the villain. From fairy tales to modern films, over and over, the other mother is cast as cruel, jealous, untrustworthy, or downright evil. So of course, when we step into this role in real life, part of us carries that baggage. There was one I liked. If you're around my age, I grew up in the 90s watching TGIF on Friday nights. Anyone remember Step by Step, Day by Day? It was Suzanne Summers and Patrick Duffy. They played mom and dad in this blended family where they each brought 3 kids into the relationship. But we still didn't get to see modeled co-parenting. Real life is a lot messier than a 22-minute laugh track. But it was probably the most realistic depiction of a blended family we'd ever been exposed to, aside from the Brady Bunch. If society has been painting stepmothers as villains for generations, why wouldn't we believe it? At least on some level, that this is what's expected of us. That suspicion, that stereotype, it's baked into our culture. But here's the thing. We get to tell a different story. We get to redefine what it means to be a stepmom, a bonus mom. We don't have to carry the villain script. We get to write our own. And biological moms, we need your help. It's going to take both of us, bio and bonus alike, to change this narrative, modeling what good moms look like. What stories about step-parents or other mothers did you grow up with? And how do they compare to the reality of your own role? Here's something else I've picked up on in conversations. Some step-parents feel like moms and dads are allowed to have bad days. They can vent about being exhausted. They can snap at their kids. They can make mistakes. And people just say, well, that's parenting. But if a stepmom dares to express frustration, suddenly she's ungrateful or she's evil. She's not cut out for this. It can feel like a double standard. One group gets grace, the other gets judgment. And it makes an already hard role feel even heavier. Where in your life have you noticed this double standard? And how has it shaped the way you share or don't share your struggles? One thing I want to mention here, and it might be the most important of all, you cannot and should not lose yourself in this role, in any parenting role. It's so easy to get wrapped up in meeting everyone else's needs, the kids, your spouse, even your co-parent, that you forget about your own. Here's the truth though. You are the leading lady in your own story. Not the extra, not the stand-in, the lead, damn it. That means your needs, your dreams, and your mental health, they matter. In fact, they are the key to making everything else work. You are not expected to give and give and give while everyone else gets to take. If that's what's happening, it's time for a deep conversation with your partner. When you tend to your own well-being first, you have the strength to love your bonus kids well, to support your spouse, and to navigate co-parenting without losing your center. Reflection. What is one way you can prioritize yourself this week? Your joy, your health, your voice, so you don't get lost in the role. And let's not forget the kid's perspective. Sometimes when a child pulls away, it isn't about you at all. Stepkids can feel torn. If they get close to you, will they be betraying their other parent? If they love you, does that mean they love mom or dad less? Those loyalty binds are real, and they can make kids push back against their own feelings. It helps to remember rejection isn't always personal. Sometimes it's just a child trying to survive a tug of war they didn't ask to be in. I myself have had to give me a little grace with this very thing this week. The kids don't mean to hurt you. They just are learning where to place that love and that there is enough room to love everyone. So, always reassure them when you're noticing these behaviors in them. You are a bonus in their life. They are loved by mom, they are loved by dad, and they are loved by you. And there is always enough love to go around. Have you seen moments where your stepchild's distance was more about loyalty binds than about you personally? How did that change the way you responded to them? So for my step-parents listening today, your role doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And here's something that can carry you through the hard days. Celebrate the wins, even the small ones. Don't wait for the big Hollywood moment where your stepchild calls you mom or gushes about how much they love you. Look for the everyday victories. A smile at the dinner table. A thank you whispered under their breath. A laugh you share in the car. Those little moments are big. They may not look like much from the outside, but inside a blended family, they're gold. What is one small win you've experienced lately as a step-parent? And how can you hold on to that as proof that your presence makes a difference? What strengths have you gained through your step-parent struggle that you wouldn't have otherwise? You are becoming, not less than, not invisible, not replaceable, and your story matters. As we wrap today, I want to leave you with this. Step parenting is not for the faint of heart. Lord, it will stretch you, it will test you, and at times it will break your heart wide open. But it will also grow you in ways you never imagined. Just be you. That is enough. So wherever you are on this journey, hold on to this truth. You are not less than. You are becoming. You matter, and you are shaping a family in ways that are deeply important, even when they seem to go unseen. And friend, before we go, hear me say this. I see you, and you are doing better than you think. I'm Jody Grace, and this is Co-Parenting with Grace.